Ms. Wells, will you please come over to the witness stand and stand behind the chair? Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully testify in connection with this proceeding?
I do.
Please have a seat. You may remove your mask. Please state your full name for the record.
Denise Lundgren Wells.
And will you spell it?
Pardon?
Please spell it.
DENISELUNDGRENWELLS.
Okay, a couple of things to keep in mind when you're testifying. The court reporter is taking down everything that's being said, so only one person can talk at a time. Please wait until the question is finished before you start answering. Please answer with a yes or a no instead of shaking your head. Please try not to say uh-huh or uh-uh, because that doesn't make for a clear record. If you don't understand a question, let the lawyer know and it'll be clarified. And finally, if an objection is made, you need to stop talking immediately. I don't want you to answer the question unless I tell you to. All right, counsel.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning.
Good morning.
And if you would tell us, are you related to Patricia Lundgren, who you probably just passed in the hallway?
Yes.
How are you two related?
She's my mother.
And Ms. Wells, we ask everybody this question, but how old are you?
62.
And are you currently working?
I am retired, but also working as a reserve principal right now.
So before you retired, what did you do?
I was the principal for Minneapolis Public Schools.
How long did you work in education?
38 years.
I always like when we have witnesses who are in education because they understand the rule about and so this will be a little easier to enforce with you. But so when did you retire officially?
June 30th, 2021.
And just been doing some part-time work for the school since then?
Yep, the last couple of weeks I've been filling in as a reserve principal.
Okay. Do you recall April 11th of this year when your parents were involved in a car crash?
I do.
And how did you learn about the car crash that they were in?
Well, I was on my phone at night with a friend, and my mother called me, and I didn't pick it up right away. And so when I got off the phone, I called her. I listened to her voicemail, and her voicemail to me said, we've been in an accident. The car is totaled. The guy died. We're tired. We're going to bed. Don't call us.
And not the kind of call a daughter wants to hear about her 80-year-old parents.
No.
Okay. So what did you do after getting that?
Well, I tried to call them, and they didn't pick up. And then I yelled at my husband and said, you know, and I'm really worried. My parents been in an accident. Someone died. Their car's totaled. I don't know anything else. And so he got in his car and drove to their home and pounded on their door and woke them up. So just to make sure that they were okay.
And so he confirmed they were okay, at least for the night. And the next morning, did you, well, that should be a question. Did he confirm that they were okay for the night at least?
Yes.
And did you then help your parents the next day?
I was at work, and I called them later in the morning, and they had taken themselves to the emergency room and been cleared. And then later in the day, I called them again, and they were looking through the white pages to find the phone number for the Brooklyn Center Police Department. So I said, I'll do it. And so they wanted their car. I keep doing, sorry. So I looked up the phone number and called, and then someone called me back and basically said, that your parents can't have their cars in custody of the BCA, and until they release it, your parents can't have access to their car. So I called them back and told them that.
Okay. And was there anything particular that your mom wanted about the car?
She wanted to get her coat out of the car.
Okay. And when she was trying to find the phone number for the Brooklyn Park Police Department, well, let me ask it this way. Were they eventually able to locate the car?
Eventually, later, I think 2 days later, after they had an investigator come out and interview them from the BCA, and then their car was released. Prior to that, even though I told them they can't have their car, they were armed with the white pages and heading out to looking for tow lots to find the car, so that they were pretty determined to find the car. And, again, had to say, you can't have that. You have to wait. So.
Did you recognize something called the white pages?
Yes. I say that because nobody that I know or work with would, anyway, in this day and age, use the white pages to do just about anything, but that's what they're used to.
That's what Mom was doing to try and find the car.
Yes.
And so eventually, was she able to get her coat?
Yes, eventually. And all their belongings out of the car.
I want to talk about your dad, Kenneth. Have you lived in the same area as your parents?
I have.
For how much of your life?
We moved to the Minneapolis area, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, when I was 4.
So you've been in the same area as your parents mostly all your life?
Yes.
And over the last, 10, 15, 20 years, how often would you see your parents?
I see them pretty much weekly, I would say. More so recently.
And prior to April 11th of this year, had your dad been having some health issues?
22 years ago, my dad had an AVM brain bleed. It stands for arterial. It's a mass in the base of his, here in his neck, or in the base of his skull. And he was, it kind of like a stroke. And he recovered. He never recovered totally. He always had his speech wasn't as clear as it used to be, or his ability to multitask was somewhat impaired. And he had been doing well, though. He was functioning, he was driving.
Did that change? Did you notice a change in that after April 11th of this year?
Yes, prior to April 11th, he was still driving. And after the accident, I began to notice that it was increasingly hard to understand him. And his sense of reasoning was why he was doing the things he was doing weren't clear, or his articulation seemed to be getting worse and worse, and I could understand less and less of what he said. And they had a doctor appointment, I think April 20th, and I said, Mom, because I was still working, you have to, when you're with the doctor, I need you to call me because I want to talk to the doctor. And prior to that, I'd never done medical appointments with them before, but I do now. And basically, I told the doctor, I said, something's wrong. His reasoning he's not making sense, and it's hard to understand him. He's more forgetful. So, yes, I noticed the difference.
Did you see, in being around him and others like your mom, that he was not the same Kenneth as before April 11?
No, he began kind of obsessing about dying. He called a friend up who, out of the blue, and asked him to sing at his funeral because he was dying. And I then called that friend and said, so how was that conversation? And he was a little taken back, to just get a call out of the blue. So, and my dad was unable to drive anymore. It's been a challenging spring.
And we understand that for some time he went into hospice care.
Yes, he's still in hospice care. He was, his balance has gotten much worse too. And he fell in August and got an abrasion on his knee, and the abrasion became infected. And they tried treating it with oral antibiotics, and they ended up hospitalizing him and putting him on IV antibiotics. And the infection became septic, and so they had to do surgery. So he was hospitalized, and from that hospitalization, he became, this is not my dad ever, but he became really belligerent. They had him strapped to the bed. And they tried to send him to rehab after 2 weeks in the hospital, and he was in rehab in the home, and he wanted to go home. And he ripped his PICC line out, so then he ended up back in the hospital. And they had him in restraints for another 2 weeks, and it's taken a really long time for him to become stabilized. So then he was sent to another home. While he was in the hospital, they did a MRI and found that his brain is shrinking, and he didn't make sense. He was fighting, pinching the nurses. He's a big guy. You saw my mom, she's little. He was a football player and just a big man. And so when he was released from the hospital, so the palliative care was called in, and they have determined that he is hospice. So he's still in hospice. He was in a home, and we've since brought him home, but then we have home health care coming in. My mom can't go get the mail down in her apartment without having someone there 24/7.
And just so you know, I want to be very careful about this. You understand your dad being his age and having some cognitive issues already, correct?
Yes.
But do you think what you've seen is that since April 11th, his condition has accelerated?
Extremely. I mean, he is no longer continent. He has to have all of his medications ground up. I said to my mom, when did he become unable to swallow a pill? And things have accelerated quickly.
And so you're getting the appropriate care for him at home?
Yes.
All right. I have nothing further, Your Honor. Thank you.
Counsel?
Good morning. I'm Earl Gray, Pauline, Kim Potter, and Amanda Montgomery. We represent Kim Potter. Did you learn after this accident who was driving the other car?
I did. Actually, I didn't see the news the night of the accident, but the next day I did.
And did you learn that Daunte Wright was the driver of the other vehicle?
Yes.
And did your mom usually drove the car because of his fall a few years back when they were together?
No, up until then, Sometimes she drove, sometimes he drove.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much. You may step down. Members of the jury, we're taking our morning break, so 20 minutes.